When you go to today's Moodle page, where is it? There we are. Scroll down to the bottom. Like as usual, you can download the step-by-step instructions that I'm giving you, the information about making a gradient, which is on your last page, and you're also going to need to download the Shape Monster Illustrator file. I think on the instructions I just called it Monster Illustrator. Same thing. This is the little guy that we're going to be creating. I'll open him up. Really cute. He's made up of basic shapes, all the shapes that we've already covered anyways. Rounded rectangles, your triangles, your circles, polygons, all those kinds of things. And we're going to be manipulating him in order to place things inside of here. The difference is, check out the colors that he is. He's not just a solid color of brown, he's a shade of brown. He gets lighter and darker in different areas. So what those are called are gradients. Whenever you gradually or gradation move from one color to the other, it's a blend. And you can do this in Illustrator. So the first thing I want to do is to show you how to set up that kind of blending mode when working in your shapes. I'll zoom in, we'll do some basic stuff over here. So let's make a shape, just a basic circle. As you know, whenever you create an object, all objects have a fill color and they have a stroke color on the outside of it. Nothing new from here. If you want to turn off your fill or your stroke, this last little button on the end is the none, the null or transparent color. So in this case, my fill color goes from white to transparent. So if I was to drag it off, you can see there's no white inside of it. The second little object that's underneath your fill color, this is your gradient color. So the first one allows you to do a solid color. This one allows you to do multiple colors within the same thing. So I'm going to click on it. By default, most gradients go from black to white. Now as we get into this, you'll see it'll actually save whatever you did last, but this is how you can make a solid color go from whatever white you have to a gradation of colors that we're working with. Second thing that you need to know, when using the gradient, you need to open up your gradient palette. I do have mine open right here on the side, but if you cannot find it, you can always go to Window and down to Gradient, and this will open up your palette. I'm going to drag it off so that we can see it and see what we're working with. Inside of this palette is everything you can do as far as changing up your colors and changing up how your gradient looks. So let's check out what all you can do with it. First of all, I have my object selected. If you don't have it selected, any of the changes that you make aren't going to be applied to it. There are two kinds of gradients, two types of gradients you can work with. First kind is a linear gradient, the other kind is a radial gradient. As the name would imply, a linear gradient goes in a straight line, usually from one side to the other side. Radial gradient, if I was to choose that type, goes from a center point outward. So that's kind of the easiest thing to work on from there. The second thing, let's go back to a linear gradient. You can change the angle at which it's working with. Right now, the angle is going from the left side to the right side, so the angle is at 0. If I wanted it to go from the top to the bottom or from one corner to the other, here's where this angle comes in. So if I needed it to be top to bottom, that would be a 90-degree angle. I can type in 90, or I can choose a predefined one, and you can see now it's changing its direction. Pretty cool? So if you look on our project for today, you can see we'll make some. Some of these gradients will go from the top to the bottom. Some of them may go from side to side or from bottom to top. We'll be changing those around as well. Let's pull this back over. So that's our angle that we're working with. If I need to go from corner to corner, maybe a 45-degree angle, you can see now it's the bottom corner to the top corner from here. Here's the fun part. How do you change up your colors? By default, you've got your black to white. This is where your little gradient slider comes in handy. I've got it selected. If I move any one of these little swatches around, I can change the starting and stopping point of where those gradients happen. So now you can see it goes from white to black, and then the rest of it is black there on out. Same way for the white. If I click on it and drag it, I can change the starting point of the black to white from there as well. If you look at the top of the gradient slider, you get the little diamond icon. This controls how quickly it'll change from one color. So if I was to move this midpoint location a little bit closer, it does the same thing. This time it quickly changes from white to black and then black there on out from there. And I can move both of these independently of each other, and they'll in general stay in the same location. So that's the basics of how to move your sliders around. If I wanted to change a color, here's how to change a color or to place a new color within here. First thing, let's say I wanted to change the color white to blue. I can double click on the gradient slider. This will bring up my color options. I've got two different ways of changing it. The very bottom one on the left-hand side is our swatches. These are all our predefined colors. So if I wanted this predefined blue, I can click on it and now it's going from blue to black. If I wanted a little bit more customization, this is where our top little icon will come in. And this will give me my little sliders, CMYK, and I can give me a specific tint or shade of blue to work with from there. Again, to bring this up, and all I did was click on it, double click on the swatch. This will bring up your color picker, and you can choose between your predefined swatches or custom swatches on the side. For today's project, everything that we're going to be doing, I'll click off of that, is going to be in shades of brown. So when you double click on your swatches and pull up your little swatch library, these are the shades and tints of browns that I'll be working with. Sometimes I'll call it tan, sometimes I'll say dark brown. I'm going to leave it up to you how, what color or how dark or light you want it to be. But these are the browns that I'm working in whenever you make your little monster. Let's see, so instead of going, let's change up in black. Blue to black, maybe I can go from blue to red or blue to any other color from here. You don't have to be stuck with just two colors. Let's say I wanted to go from blue to red to another color. If I want to add on a swatch, all I have to do is click underneath it. Notice my little cursor is a white arrow with a little plus sign. When I click underneath, this will add a swatch to my area. Notice I also get a little midpoint. And I can double click on it and change its color as well. I can add as many color swatches as I need as long as I've got room on my swatch palette, simply by clicking underneath it, then double clicking and choosing the colors that I'm working with. Pretty cool. Very, very easy, very simple stuff to work with. Again, if I change this to radial, it would look something like this. So you get kind of this rainbow bit of effect to work with. I like working in linear because it's a little bit easier, a little more palatable. To remove a swatch, so let's say I've got one too many on here. I don't really want that red swatch. Easiest thing you can do is to click on it and drag it off. And when I let go, notice that it kind of popped off the little gradient slider. And I can move the rest around. If for some reason that doesn't work, you can always select a color, click on your little trash can, and it'll delete that stop, and now I'm left out with that. So that's kind of the basics of working with gradients within your shape. First thing you got to remember to do is to create your object, choose your fill color, and set that color to gradient. I will show you, you can make strokes be gradients as well. I'll make my stroke a little bit thicker. If I bring my stroke to the front and then click on gradient, I can now apply that gradient to that particular stroke. Let's say I made this one be 90 degrees, and so it's going off at a different angle from there. Pretty cool. So that's what I'm working with from there. Just be aware that we'll be working on fill or stroke. For this project, we're not going to be applying any strokes or any gradients to a stroke. We're only going to be working on fill gradients with this one. The last thing to really know about working with gradients and making gradients, so of course you can add swatches to it, is there is a tool that can make this a little bit easier. So if you don't have your gradient palette open, look in your toolbox. This tool right here, it looks like a gradient swatch, is your gradient tool. When I click on it, this will give me a little line going usually across the object that I have. Notice that when I pull my cursor over it, I get my gradient slider. From here I can click on the slider and I can individually customize it to where those gradient swatches are. If I click and drag, I can tell what direction I want it to go. So if I need it to go in a specific one and I don't want to type out that direction, this will give me the ability to click and drag my starting and stopping point. I can even click off to the edge outside of it and it'll still stay inside of here. All my blue in this case is outside of my object. If I clicked on the middle of it, I can move this around. So the gradient tool gives you a little bit more customability for what we're working on. All cool. Very, very simple. Let's apply this to our project that we're working on. So I'm going to delete this guy away. I won't do the whole thing with you because I think y'all can figure out how to do it. But essentially, I've broken your little monster guy down into its basic shapes. So I've got my gradient palette open. I can open my swatches palette too if you don't see it. So these are my swatches that I'll be working with. Again, we're going to be using the browns that are underneath here. First thing we're going to make is the overall body of our monster. You can use this as a template. You can change it up if you want to. He's going to be made from a rounded rectangle, and I'm giving you a specific height, width, and radius. How do I type in a specific size for something? Y'all remember? Click once. If you've got a shape tool, if you just click once, this will bring up your options, and now I can type in 3 by 4.5, the radius of 0.5. We'll say OK to that. Notice now, I created my new object. It remembered the last thing that I created, all those rainbow gradients that I'm working with. Now for this one, I'm going to get rid of my stroke since we don't need a stroke. Let's see if we can edit up the body of it. So I'm going to fill it with a gradient. In this case, I'm going from tan to a medium brown. So I'm going to go over here. I need to get rid of some of these. I don't need that many swatches, so I can click and drag them off. Let's get rid of that one too. I'm going to double click on this first one. Now I'll choose this tan light brown color from here. And then I'll double click on this last one. Instead of it being yellow, we'll go to one of these medium type browns. The angle needs to be 90 degrees. So I'll type in 90 when I hit return. Now it's going from the bottom to the top. And that's what I've got right here as well. If you look really close, let's get rid of our alignment. We don't need that. The top is a little bit wider than the bottom of this one. So to change that up, I'm asking you to use your direct selection tool. Remember, with direct selection, you can click on the individual points, or I can click and drag and that'll select just those bottom corners. I'm going to use my arrow keys to slightly nudge those over. Give them a tapered edge of the body. We'll do the same thing for the bottom edge over here. Select them, using my arrow keys, nudge it over from there. Cool, so we got the body all made up from there. As far as the eyes go, eyes are made up of 2 circles. So let's grab the ellipse tool. Of course, I need a perfect circle, so I'm going to hold down my shift key. I've made one particular eye. We're going to fill this in with a dark brown. So I got my swatches. Let's fill it in. There's a dark brown right there. And I need one that's on the inside as well. So we'll click and drag. It's going to be a little bit smaller, the inside edge of it. Remember, I'm holding down my shift to get my perfect circle. What can I hold down if I need to move my circle around? Spacebar, bingo. If I want to put it directly in the center, spacebar, I can center it up right about there. Fill another perfect circle. This kind, it's going to be solid black. Can't really see that too well. Let's make our background circle a little bit lighter. There we go. That's good. And we'll give it 2 little light brown highlights to work with. So I'm going to choose light brown. Give them a big one up there and a little one down here. Hey, if I need to make a quick copy of something, how can I do that? I want to make another eye that's exactly the same. Bingo, option. I've got them selected. If you want to, you can group it. So this will keep them all the same. Hold down option, and when I drag, there's a quick copy of that. You'll do this several times. So there's obviously 2 eyes, 2 teeth, 2 arms, 2 ears, those types of things to work with. So there's the eyes. Maybe I can make them a little bit bigger. I'll leave it up to you how you want to make your monster. We'll make them a little kooky. Okay, so for the belly, belly is the easiest one. What shape is that? Polygon shape. Does need to be 7 sides. Right now I've got 6 sides. How can I add a 7th one? Up arrow. I'm holding down my mouse, hit your up arrow, and that'll give me that one. For this one, we want it to be a gradient, and we want it to go from tan to white. So I've already got my tan loaded up. Let's load up white. Double click, choose white, and there it is from there. And the 90 degrees is already typed in. For mine, looks like I turned it upside down, so that's in the base of the belly. You can do the same if you want to. So we'll rotate him. and we're going to stretch it out so that it fills up that particular side as well. All right, next page, the mouth. The mouth is kind of be a compound object. So we're using a pen to draw a straight line, and we're using 2 circles to draw the teeth and the mouth inside of it. So I'll grab my pen tool. This is the only time I think we're going to use a stroke. So I'm going to swap that out. And our stroke is going to be a dark brown. So let's use a dark brown. Let's make a straight line. Click and click. And of course it needs to be 4 points. Now I don't see my points up here, but I bet if I swap to my selection tool and select it, there we go. Here they are at the top. Type in 4, so that'll be a thick line from there. If you need to make it straight, you can always use your direct selection tool. Straighten it out. For the back side of it, we're going to create the inside of the mouth, this area right here. So which shape? Obviously the ellipse. Let's get a perfect circle. We'll click and drag. Here's what we're going to do with this ellipse. Got it created. Ellipse tool, create a vertical. Oh, looks like I'm skipping ahead. It's supposed to do the teeth first. We'll do the background of the mouth first. We'll swap that out. Give it a fill color. This time we're going from tan to a medium brown. So there's tan. Let's give it a medium brown from there. To cut it in half, it's as simple as getting rid of that top point. To do that, we're going to use our direct selection tool. Click once, right on it. When I delete, now I've got my deletion point for this one. I do need to send it behind everything, so we're going to go into your arrangement. This is where that send backwards or send to back. We'll do it a couple of times. There it is behind there. Arrange. Looking good. Maybe I'll move his belly down to right there. Same thing for the teeth. We're going to make elongated ellipse. In this case, we're going to go from white to gray. So let's change up this first one. White. Change up the second one to a darker gray. That'll work. And we need to cut that one in half. Use our selection tool and get rid of that top one from there. So now he's got a little tooth. We'll change up the gradient location. Notice that it does have a little drop shadow underneath there. I don't want it to be so gray, so this is where I can click on the inside of this gradient and maybe move it to a different location, giving it a little bit more white and a little bit more shadow underneath there. We'll make it bigger. Let's do a quick copy of that one. So now I've got my teeth created for my monster. Cool. Very, very easy. Same thing. For the ears, ears are essentially triangles. You're going to make one triangle that's got a gradient inside of it. The inside triangle will be a lighter gradient inside of it. And then you'll make 2 copies of it. For the arms, how would you make the arms? Bingo. Draw a circle, draw an ellipse. Let's see, let's give it, in this case we'll go from a dark tan to a lighter. And instead of doing an ellipse, notice that it's a little bit smaller up here. I can just click on this top arrow or top point and drag it up, and now I've got that teardrop kind of shape that I can place on either side of my monster. There's one on that side. Hold down Option, we'll copy another one, you can rotate it. Same thing for the legs, just a little teardrop, elongated ellipse for him out there as well. I won't work on that since I think y'all can make those pretty easily. The only thing different is going to be the hair. The hair we use the pen tool, the pencil tool, to draw off. Little hair on top. Uh-oh. Now why didn't it fill in? Can y'all figure it out? Why didn't it fill in there?
You have neither of them selected for color.
Bingo. Okay, so I've got it selected now. It drew off something, but notice, yeah, it's got neither fill nor stroke. If I click on it now, it will fill in with that color. Here's the other thing. If I double click on my pencil options, remember one of the options was to fill it in with a new stroke. I didn't have that checked off. Now if I use my pencil tool and draw something, it will fill it in. So if you do wind up drawing something, just like I did that first time and it just didn't show up, it's still there. Go ahead and select it and you can fill it in, or open up your pencil options and turn that in as well. Does that make sense? I lose everybody? Okay. Last thing you'll do is you'll make a nice gradient for the background with the blue sky. You'll make a gradient for the stars. You can move them over, you can change his size. All the background is a simple rectangle with a blue gradient go into a white gradient. Double click, white gradient. Leave at a 90-degree angle. Nope, should be a negative 90-degree angle. There we go. You can change up the starting point. Obviously that's in front of everything, so we'll need to send it to the back, to where he's behind there. If I chose my star tool now, it's going to remember that gradient that I created, so whatever stars that I add to the sky are automatically going to have that blue and white gradient that I created. Here's the last thing that you're going to do once you create your little monster. Be sure he's got the ears, he's got his little footses down at the bottom. There's another tool, just as we've got a pencil tool that allows us to draw off lines and freeform shapes, is the paintbrush tool. Paintbrush is right beside it, looks like a regular artist paintbrush. This allows you to not just draw lines, but actually draw lines that have a certain texture to them. There is a palette called your brushes palette, and if you don't see it on the side, you can always go to Window. There's our brushes. The one we're going to choose, and we're going to get into this on Monday, is this particular brush here. The paintbrush palette, with it selected, let's give it a, I want to choose my stroke to be green. This will give it a texture that looks like, in this case, a chalk type texture. So when I click and drag, it looks like that. And wherever I click and drag, that's kind of what it tends to look like. Next week, we're going to make our own brushes, and we're actually going to make something with it. But what we're going to do with this brush is I want you to make some grass down at the bottom. You can change up your stroke, make it a little bit thinner. It'll take you several little strokes. Of course, he has no feet, so he's just kind of hanging out there. If you change up your green color, make some lighter, make some darker, it'll give your grass a little bit more natural kind of feel. Let's get a little bit more lighter. If you want to add flowers to it, that's up to you. The main thing is that you're using your paintbrush tool to recreate each one of these little things as well. All cool? Very, very easy. Nothing you haven't done new before except for making your gradients and except for using the little paintbrush tool once it's finished. When you are done, you can go ahead and save it as an Illustrator file, and you're going to upload this version to Moodle once you're finished. All cool? I have to say all cool one more time. You know, screen. Turn it over to y'all and let you get started.